Hello, everyone. So Kevin, this session is being recorded. Could you let me know if you can probably hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Apart from the video bit, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the interest of time, I think let's just give people 3 minutes to join. Then since we are recording the call, yeah, probably we can get kick started. So far, welcome everyone. So far, who is on the call? Yeah, let's just give say we can kickstart the session at 6 minutes past 10. Yeah, so in the next 3 minutes we get started. Yeah, quickly. Kevin,
Yes, Steven.
can you confirm that you can hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Also, how about the video feed?
Yes, it's good. It's good.
Okay. At least, yeah, we shall get kickstarted. So welcome again, everyone. Yeah, about the controls. Yeah, for a good experience, we shall allow the presenter to take charge. Yeah, such that we can have a good recording. Then probably at the end, yeah, we can have some questions asked. Yeah, so feel free to make use of the chat. Yeah, such that we can, yeah, can have a great session. Yeah. Time is really moving. Yeah, so we said in the next few minutes we should get kickstarted. Yeah, so for now, as people join, I will just give again yet another introduction. My name is Chanda Steven, and today this is going to be our second session as the Kampala Devops Community. And today we have an engineer going by the name Kevin Otim. Yeah, Kevin Otim works with Labremas. Yeah, I would say I started my DevOps journey with him. Yeah, back in 2021. Yeah, and he's going to be a rich resource for this session. He's going to be sharing his expertise in regards to the usage of API gateways, which are very crucial to most of our development or most of our day-to-day development work, since we at least find ourselves working with APIs at most of the times. Yeah. So coming back to the point of Kampala Devops Community. So DevOps as DevOps, yeah, it's a small field in the country, and this initiative was inspired and started in such a way that we could have DevOps engineers coming together to learn, collaborate, and get to connect, yeah, as well as also have these sessions and also get to, network in case there are opportunities anywhere, opportunities get shared such that we can, get to grow as DevOps engineers. Yeah. So this has been on. Yeah. So for now, we are running the Kampala Devops community as a community on LinkedIn. And so far, as per today, we have 70 members, and also we are growing steadily. So for now, LinkedIn was the first platform where we started. And I know, fingers crossed, we shall get to explore more engaging platforms that we know we can use for community building. Yeah. So for today, the focus is going to be on API gateways. So please note that this session is being recorded, and the recording of this will be uploaded on YouTube. Yeah, such that it can be referenced at any time. So previously we had a session on Pull Me managing cloud infrastructure using code. So that session was uploaded on our YouTube channel. It's Kampala Devops Community on YouTube. On LinkedIn, it's also Kampala Devops Community. So for those who are not in this, who are not in the community, you can feel free to join us. Because for us, we say everyone is DevOps. At least it's a culture that, you know, has enabled us to build modern software. Yeah. So for now, I'm going to ask Kevin, yeah, so to probably turn his video on and probably take on this show. Yeah. Thanks again for joining. My name is Steven. Yeah. So for now, all hands on deck for Kevin. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Stephen. Please confirm that you can see my screen, Stephen.
Yeah. So we can be able to see your screen.
All right, great. All right. The rest of the members will join us. So I'm going to get started. So this session will start, and we shall try to keep it as short as possible. Most likely somewhere before 12 p.m. And then, yeah, let's see how it goes. All right, so this webinar is mostly about gateways, API gateways. So it's going to be an introduction to API gateways. And of course, more advanced topics and deep dives will come in and at a later stage. So I'm Kevin Otim, and I am a DevOps engineer currently at Labremas. So the agenda will flow as follows. One, we are going to talk about APIs. I'm sure there are a few people who might be very new to APIs. So we shall just talk briefly about APIs. Then we talk about API gateways. There'll be enough talking. Then we shall go into demo time. So talking about APIs, yeah, for experienced developers, APIs are a very interesting aspect of programming. And what are they in brief? So similar to user interface, similar to the way you interact with your phone, your laptop, there is always an interface between you and the machine. So when it comes to APIs, it is an interface between API and API. So how do machine and machines speak to each other? So they speak with a common language, which is through APIs. And there are various types of APIs, obviously. We can talk about REST, we can talk about SOAP, we can talk about GraphQL. So that is what APIs are in brief. So with the APIs, we have, of course, transitioned from building monolithic APIs to microservices. Monolithic APIs, these are the ones whereby we bundle the entire system into one deployable unit with all features. And microservices, this is like an upgrade from monolith. So with microservices, we split functionality across of an entire system into slightly tiny deployable units with independence, obviously for autonomy and reusability. So with microservices for a small project, it might not grow out of hand. It might be manageable. But now, when your services start to grow so big, microservices in a way, they just start becoming a curse rather than a blessing. Yeah, because their management becomes a bit challenging. Yeah. So how big can a microservice really grow? There's an interesting YouTube video. I think it was presented by an experienced programmer who was talking about Netflix, how Netflix transitioned from monolith into microservices. Well, the question would be, how big can a microservice system grow? This diagram here represents, at that time, what Netflix entire system looked like. So just imagine the black circles are representing services that have autonomy, all interconnected. Imagine this is you managing all this at the same time. It becomes so difficult. Yeah? When you talk about security, when you talk about deployment, when you talk about performance, it becomes very, very hard. So challenges of managing APIs. When we go the microservices route, managing APIs becomes a bit difficult when it comes to scalability, security in terms of rate limiting and authentication. Rate limiting, so imagine you have your wonderful API deployed and consumed by different people, and bad actors just tend to, of course, do bad things. They stress your machine to a DDoS attack, right? Which might not be so good for your actual users. That is around security. Monitoring and analytics can also be very challenging. So you have a maze of APIs, and each API needs to be monitored, analytics needs to be got from each of those, And then when it comes to management and load balancing, it will be very difficult. From this image, I think you can tell where a gateway might fit in. I could point to this circle here because most of the communications are converging in one place. Yeah. Continuing, when it comes to API management, it is also quite challenging when you have so many APIs. Moving on. Now comes gateways. So with all these microservices introduced, there is a special API gateway that is introduced. What is an API gateway? So an API gateway is just like any other API, but this time around, it is a front end for your APIs. They handle requests, client requests, they manage traffic, they enforce security at a single point, providing so many features at a single point. So this is how an API gateway might fit into your ecosystem. So obviously you have your clients, which these are the web users and mobile users. Supposing you have a mobile application, web application. So all communications and requests, they go through one central point, which is the API gateway. And then the API gateway routes traffic appropriately to your microservices that actually do the work. I have seen people enhance this architecture where they, when you look at where the API gateway is, they split it into different API gateways. So you have micro API gateways. I guess we're not running away from microservices after all. So they split it in a way that an API gateway, one that can handle web traffic, one that can handle mobile traffic, and then one that might just handle people who integrate it programmatic integration of services. So this gets split up into different API gateways. Yeah. So without an API gateway, the communications would go like this. A request coming in from the browser, it goes straight to catalog, for example. A request moving from the mobile application would go straight into ordering. So you can imagine at the mobile and the web client, it starts doing so much work, whereby it has to have knowledge of the different microservices, a reference of the different microservices in terms of their URLs, their authorization, their authentication. Catalog might have its different way of authenticating. Let's say it's using a JWT, shopping cart. Probably another service might be using, let's say, basic auth. So the clients eventually, they start having not unified processes. Moving on. So benefits of using the API gateway. So it's important to centralize security. When everything is everywhere, it becomes a bit challenging. When it comes to token validation, rate limiting, and API filtering. Traffic control is also important. This entails load balancing. So at your gateway, you can load balance in case of a lot of load traffic coming in from your clients. You can load balance whereby you distribute and ensure that your services are always up and running. You can do API monitoring, metrics logging at a central point instead of going microservice per microservice when it comes to monitoring and logging. Transformations. At times, you might need to transform your requests before they actually reach your microservices. Let's say you have to implement some cores before they reach your microservices. Let's say you want to add a few validations. That also happens. So API gateways also help with scalability. Yeah, when there's a lot of spike, it handles it very well. And another thing when it comes to centralized security, when your clients reach directly to your microservices, let's say it's an invalid request with invalid tokens, your microservices, they end up working too hard, trying to invalidate tokens, rather than offloading all that load to a central place, which is the API gateway. So there is a quite a confusion when it comes to reverse proxies and API gateways. So I'm sure some of you might be having questions like, at times we might be using a reverse proxy, for example, Nginx. Why would we need an API gateway? Yeah, fine. They have relationships. One, when it comes to reverse proxies act as intermediaries to distribute traffic. And a good example is Nginx. It's very good at it. It's extremely robust and production ready. So API gateways, they provide more functionality when it comes to security, rate limiting and monitoring, and in general, management. So with my experience when it comes to reverse proxies, particularly Nginx, reaches a point in time whereby every time you do a change, let's say you're adding an upstream route, let's say you're installing SSL, you eventually at some point have to restart Nginx, which might cause a downtime. I know there are ways of making Nginx handle requests gracefully before they go off, and you're dealing with configuration files. API gateways come and give you user interfaces whereby you can easily navigate and then also manage your APIs. Moving on. Popular API gateway solutions that I have seen in the market and that are being used. So the Azure API management, that is one of them. So it is a robust and super solution, the Azure API management gateway. And it is by Microsoft Azure. So when it comes to it, I have dealt with it both managed and an unmanaged solution of it, whereby managed, you offload it to the cloud provider, which is Azure in this case. And then unmanaged is where you set it up and self-manage it and handle it. It is great at its work. For managed, however, when it comes to its pricing, it's quite pricey, a few dollars, which might not be as a resource to most people. The next one I've used is Kong. Kong is a lightweight, it's open source. The next one is AppG. This is API-G. This is offered by Google. And then we have the Amazon API Gateway. We have Nginx as well. We have Tyke, we have Traffic, we have Kappa Proxy. Of all of these, I have used Azure API Management Gateway. I've used Kong, I've used Nginx, and I have used Amazon API Gateway with Tyke, a bit of Tyke. And they are all related. They are the same. The only difference is some offer a lot more features, and then obviously when it comes to the pricing, different pricing, yeah. So for our lessons, we are going to use Kong. We are going to demonstrate a few things with Kong. Why should we choose Kong as an API gateway? So one, Kong is open source, extremely cloud native. Yeah, it offers you some free packages you can use. However, they have their own Kong Connect. It's called K Connect, where it is managed by them. All you have to do is integrate with it and then register your APIs. Kong is very extensible. It's extensible via features called plugins. So plugins would be like a plugin for rate limiting, a plugin for security, a plugin for logging and monitoring. Yeah, so it's highly scalable. And then also it integrates very well with Kubernetes and the cloud infrastructure in general. Yeah, it has some good community around it as well. So we are going to look at a demo. If there are any questions at this point, Stephen, anything from the chat?
So far, nothing in the chat, but we encourage, if you have any questions, please leave your question in the chat. And, as we move on, if you get the question, just leave it in the chat. Then we shall reference the chat in case of anything. Yeah, but there's one from Soka.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's asking, what's the difference between API gateway and load balancer, or do they serve the same purpose?
Oh, that's a good question. So some API gateways, or most API gateways behind the scenes offer load balancing. Yeah, Kong, for example, it offers load balancing behind the scenes. I think for some people might just want something very specific with load balancing, where they go for some of the load balancing solutions. I don't know that answers your question.
Yeah, so I would say, I think you've tried to bring it out well. Yeah, though I think anyone who has worked with Linux has probably been exposed to Nginx. So now on the list of popular API gateways, Nginx was among, because we know Nginx is versatile and serves numerous functions. But then how would you bring in the concept of Nginx being also among the API gateways?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, like I said, when you centralize your access point to your APIs, automatically that component within your architecture becomes an API gateway. Yeah, and something else I maybe forgot to mention is when it comes to API, you can actually build your API gateway from scratch. So there is, I have had experience with Ocelot. Ocelot, I think it is .NET. Yeah, you can build and define your upstreams in code, and it becomes part of the microservices. So anything where there's anything that's a central point of access to multiple services automatically becomes an API gateway. So Nginx in that case, much as it is behind the scenes a server, a web server, it is also a gateway.
Yeah, I would say that is insightful. I think questions will come in as we continue.
All right.
But for now, please take it on.
Oh, good. All right. So demo time. So for this, we Stephen and I had to brainstorm a bit. So we were torn between either doing a production ready or something simple for demonstration. So production ready would mean we would probably explore into Kubernetes and set it up on a Kubernetes cluster and then test it out. But for this demo, we saw it best to just give a quick overview. So we shall be running it on Docker locally on this machine. And then from there, we shall look at some of its capabilities. All right, so to get started, I am just going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to share my entire screen.
Yeah, so for those online, you might wonder why Kevin might be switching between screens. So we since the session is automatically being recorded, we are trying to maintain high levels of privacy such that we don't leak any sensitive information, that we have a clean recording because we don't edit the recording, we upload it directly to YouTube as recorded. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephen. All right. So one of the requirements to run and set up this is you need Docker. Docker has to be installed on your machine, however, and also Docker Compose. So I'm using a Windows machine, and the best way and easiest way to set up Docker is using the Docker desktop. So this is my Docker desktop running. So currently it is on running status. It's running Kubernetes, and also it's running the Docker engine. So that's it. So to further go into this, so we're going to go straight away into the installation of Kong. So its documentation is quite interesting. It is very direct, and it has a lot of information. So first things first, so I have already run these commands prior to this because we all know how Docker takes so much data and time when it comes to pulling down images. So I've run all these, but I'll just go through the processes I went through. So one, you need to prepare a Docker network. So currently you just run this today. When your Docker is running, you just run these commands. We shall share this link so everyone can test it out. So you run your Docker network create. So this creates a Kong network. This is where we are going to attach a few services, specifically a database, and then also Kong itself. So the moment you run this creates, let me try to run it, and you'll see that this has already been created. So let's go to my terminal. So when I run Docker network create Kong, yeah, it will respond with an error saying the network already exists, so I can't just recreate it. Then the next is, so Kong behind the scenes uses, of course, it has to store configs. So it needs a storage point. So we are using Postgres. So I'm also going to install Postgres database. In this case, it's going to be called Kong database. So, and then also setting up a bit of credentials for it. So you can also run this and to create the Postgres database. So if I'm to check whether it is up and running, so I'll just say Docker PS. So as you can see, Postgres 13 is up and running, and it is running. It's being exposed on port 5432. Then the next thing is we need to run a bit of migrations. So Kong has a bit of default configs. So when you run this, it bootstraps database migrations that will aid Kong's functionality. Then after that, you now just run it. This is the last command you run. So Kong comes in two flavors. There is an enterprise version, which is K-Connect. And then there is the self-hosted, which is what we are using, self-hosted. So in case you have the enterprise version, yeah, it has a cost attached to it. We can look at the pricing later, but if you have it, it will require for some licensing. So we're not doing this step, we're skipping it. Next thing, you just have to run this. So this, it adds a bit of environment variables to the Kong gateway that is going to be running. For example, it specifies the Kong database that has been created earlier, the host, then the user, the password, and then it sets up logging, This is internal to Kong, logging, and then we also specify the admin, the port at which the gateway is going to be listening for requests from, which is going to be at a port 8001. Then the Kong admin. So Kong has a UI where we are going to be adding services and routes and then APIs. So that will be running on port 8002. So we expose the ports. This is how we expose the ports. And then we execute the command. So upon execution, Kong will start running. So if I'm to just come here, you'll see that it's on a running state. Yeah. All right. So the Kong gateway has been set up, and then also the Kong database has also been set up. Now, there are a few checks you can do if you want to clean it at the end of the demo or at the end of your experimentation. You just run this to kill the Docker containers that have been created. All right, this is the entire process of setting it up. Now, so currently it is running, and if I just go to the admin UI, which will be running at localhost 8002. So this is how its admin UI looks like. Yeah, it keeps warning you're running Kong in free mode. So this is how it looks like. And it has workspaces. So it works in terms of workspaces. So this is the default workspace when you're running it free. It has the capabilities of Teams, but this comes in on the paid version. And then also a dev portal. A dev portal, when you're using Kong Connect, then that's when you can get a dev portal for purposes of, let's say you want to share API documentation with your consumers. So it just offers that. That is for the paid version. And then analytics, but we shall look at some of these later. Right, when it comes to workspaces, the default workspace is created. So when we go to it, so there are a few things we need to set up. So one is the gateway service. So the gateway service, basically, it represents your API. It is an abstraction of your API. Let's say you are running an e-commerce. One of your APIs always could be the products, the catalog, or the users or authentication API. So you register it. After registering it, you go ahead and register routes. So think of this as endpoints. Your get endpoint, your post endpoint, such that to help Kong route traffic effectively. Then when it comes to consumers, you can register consumers. These are authenticated users who can be able to access your system. All right, so to start this up, so for this, my microservice in question, I want to use the JSON placeholder. Yeah, I didn't set up a fully fledged microservice. So we are just going to register a few endpoints, and then we shall see how traffic is going to be routed. Right from Kong, you hit Kong, Kong redirects traffic to your backend or upstream services. All right, so to get to that point, all right, so I'm just going to delete this. So we are going to assume we are creating a blog. Let me just delete this so it doesn't clash with what we have. So let's assume our system is a blog where people do posts, their users, and their comments and views and all that stuff. All right. So straight away, we are going to create our service. So you go and click on create service. So you give it a service name. So in this case, I am going to call this service awesome blog API. Yes. You can give it a tag. A tag, this is mostly just for management. So one of the tags, I can give a tag, for example, this is going to be a demo tag. then I can specify the upstream URL. So if I go to the JSON placeholder, let's say posts. So this is the dummy data that is returned. So that means the base URL in this case becomes my full URL for my upstream service. You can either do this, or you can, if you have the host, the path, and then the port, you can also specify that. So we shall go with the full URL. So I'm just going to paste it there. Yeah, after pasting it there, there are a few other advanced options like retries, connection timeout. You can edit this as you wish. And yeah, for this case, we're not going to apply SSL certificates. This is just demo purpose, but otherwise, you can add certificates. So I'm going to save this. So upon saving that, so this saves our API, an abstraction of our service. So after creating it, what we need to do is add routes. Yeah. So I'm going to add a route. So one of the routes, I'm going to call it posts, or I could just call it get posts. I have to specify the service who is going to handle this request. So in this case, it's going to be our awesome blog API. I give it a tag. I call it demo. Then the path. So in this case, the path becomes posts. So I'm going to get this. So I'm going to add this. So it's important to have the slash at the beginning. So slash posts. And for now, you can specify hosts, but I do not want to do that. Then methods. So this is going to be a get. Then you can add headers if you wish, but I'm not going to do that. And then there are some advanced options. So for this, I think one of the things I'll do is I'll strip I'm going to strip the path. I'm going to disable this strip path option, because the strip path option means if a path has been specified and hits the gateway, do you want, for example, slash posts, do you want to persist that throughout to the upstream service, or do you want it not to be added? So the fact that I need it so that when someone hits the gateway, they add slash posts, and then that gets persisted and gets added to the upstream full URL. So after adding that, I'm going to save this. So just like that, we've added a get posts endpoint to our gateway. So we can test this. So I'm going to use Insomnia. Okay, so for Insomnia, so the base URL, as you can see, it is on 8,000. This represents our gateway. So I'm going to say the gateway base URL slash posts. When I submit this, you can see I'm able to get data. So traffic is being routed from my client, in this case, which is Insomnia. It goes and hits the gateway. The gateway goes ahead and hits the registered service, which is the upstream. Yeah. So this is how it works. I'm going to go ahead and register 2 or 3 more routes, and then we shall go to the next step. So same process. So I just need to add a route. So I'll say get post by ID, the service, some blog, the tag, demo. The path in this case is going to be, let me just confirm, going back. If I want to get a post by an ID, I just need to add posts. The route becomes posts with an ID at the end. All right, so I'm just going to do this. So the ID in this case, so I'm going to try and put a regex. Let me see whether this would work. Okay, let me try that. All right, so the method in this case is still going to be a get, a post by ID. And then the advanced option is, oh, I don't want to strip the path. Let me see whether this is going to work. All right, that has worked. I'm going to add one more, get users. That's the service. The tag is going to be demo. The path in this case is going to be users. You see, yeah, users is here. So this becomes its route slash users, and the method is going to be a get. I will remove this, and then I'm going to save this. So this is how you register your routes for your different endpoints for your service or API. Okay, so we have tested this, and it works as expected. Let me see. When we do a post by ID, let's say ID1, you see I am able to get the post by ID. Then if I'm to try and see if I get users, yeah, so we are able to get all that information by hitting our gateway. Okay, so now some of the advantages of the gateway, as we mentioned earlier, is one, it offers a centralized secure point for our APIs, and then also it helps in monitoring. Then it also helps in performance when it comes to caching. So we are going to look at some of those implementations in Kong. So moving on, we created our gateway, which is this. We created routes. We added 3 routes to our API. So Kong has plugins. So these are plugins. This is a way of extending the capabilities of your APIs. So I can add a plugin. There are a number of them. There's a plugin for basic authentication, a plugin for JWT. This is all authorization, key authentication, so many. So when it comes to security, we are going to demonstrate this with key authentication. So I'm going to enable key authentication. So key authentication, you just click on it, and then you'll be like, okay, I want it to go across all the services. You can make it go across all services, routes, and consumers, or you can specify, can be like, I'm going to specify this to this particular API, and then also this particular routes. So I'll go with global. Then, so the key name, this is what you add on the header. So you add it there. And there are a few other advanced parameters like the instance name of this plugin, and then tags, and then, yeah, stuff like that. So I'm going to add this. So it's going to affect all services, routes, and consumers. So I'll give it a name. So I'll give it a name, key auth demo. The tag is going to be a demo, and then I'm going to save this. So after creating this, now you might wonder, where are your keys? So now that's where consumers come in. So when we go back to the admin panel, we look at consumers. So we can create a consumer. So we create a consumer. Let's say a client is registering for our service. So we give it a name. So let's say consumer B. Consumer ID, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The tag still, this is just for organization purposes. After creating that, I'm just going to save this. So this becomes our consumer. Then we go to the credentials sections, and then we need to add keys to it. So we say add a new key for auth. So I can give it a tag still. I can leave it empty. When I leave it empty, that means that this gets generated automatically. So when I save this, so I get auth over there. All right. So let's try and test this out and see how it's going to work. So we can come to our post. So Insomnia has a number of authenticating strategies. So we have JWT or auth2. So we shall go with the API key auth. So the key becomes API key, which we specified in the panel. And then the value, if I put anything, And then let's say I'm going to try to access the posts. And then I say submit. You can see that it returns for me unauthorized. Yeah? So this is a security layer that has been added to our system. So I can quickly go back and I'll get the key, the credential. Now, when I add this credential here, you can see that now we have some authentication happening. Yeah. So you can do that for the rest of your APIs, and then you have centralized, at least the first layer of authentication and authorization for that matter. So that is authentication. Yes.
Kevin,
Yes,
just to
David.
chip in
Yes,
a
please.
bit.
All right.
So I would say I think most of us have consumed APIs. Yeah, I would say we have so many different APIs. Say Africa is talking, Flutterwave, and
Yeah.
and so a number of APIs, right? And we always generate these API keys, right? But now
Yes.
just imagine if you're a developer and you wanted to implement such logic. I think people can now get to appreciate the value
Yeah.
of API gateways that they offer,
Yes.
right? Out of the
Yes.
box.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think I would say it's a really insightful session for those out there who probably want to say monetize their APIs. This comes in handy. Just one feature of an API gateway enables you to be able to monetize your API, or even set up controlled access to it. So I would say
Yes.
API gateways are really insightful at this for the step we have moved in. Yeah.
Yeah. All
Yours,
right.
Kevin.
Thank
You
you.
can proceed.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. So we've secured our API endpoint, particularly the post. Now, furthermore, let's look at performance when it comes to performance. I'm going to use this. Let's see, the key is this. Let me look at getting a post by ID. So I'm going to change this to API key. I'm just going to copy this. Then I'll just go back here. I'll pick the key. All right, so I'm just going to run this. When I come to headers, and I run this multiple times, you'll see XCONG upstream latency. Yeah, I know it's averaging about 35 milliseconds, but this could be more. Yeah, so it can affect the system in case, let's say, your systems are deployed elsewhere, let's say in Europe, and your users are in Africa or Uganda in that matter. So you can do a bit of caching. We are going to look at how to do that. So back to our service that we just created. When we go to plugins, we can add a new plugin. The plugin is called proxy caching. So this is a free plugin. So we can enable it. We can enable it to be global so that it affects every service, route, and consumer. And then I'll leave some of these to default. And then going on, I'll go to the strategy. I'll use memory for this. Yeah, you can give it a name as well. I'll leave it blank. The tags, I'll give it a demo tag. And then I'm going to save this. So upon adding this, we can go ahead and test this one more time. So when I run this, so time will come, eventually the endpoint is going to be cached and cached, and the latency will start dropping very, very quickly. And you'll come to like 1 millisecond, sub milliseconds. Yeah. So that is also another way of improving performance. Yeah. You can see when you keep doing this so many times, it starts improving the performance of the entire system. I could also try with this. Let's see, we are getting all the posts. See that? So previously we were averaging about 90 milliseconds. Right now we are going to 5 and 22. So this is another way of improving performance when it comes to an API gateway. All right, that is about performance. Then another interesting plugin I came across is when it comes to monitoring, yeah, how you monitor your APIs. Yeah, at the API gateway, that is the perfect point to handle monitoring. So I'm going to add they have a plugin for Prometheus. I think a few of you are not yet familiar with Prometheus. It's a very interesting open source solution for monitoring, and I'm going to enable it. So I'm going to enable it globally, so it goes across my entire, all my entire APIs. A few settings. I want it to monitor latency. It should also go ahead and do it per consumer, and then status codes, upstream health, bandwidth. For AI, I'm not using AI now. So AI metrics, I'll leave that off. I'll give this a tag of demo. I'll leave this. So when I set it up, so Prometheus has been enabled, but then you need to have Prometheus running. So I will just go ahead and set up Prometheus. So I'm going to use Docker Compose. So I'm going to set up Prometheus and Grafana. So it's going to run on Docker, and it is Prometheus will be running on port 9090, and then Grafana is going to be running on port 3000. I've just set up an admin secure URL for us to access Grafana, and then the Prometheus configs. So for this configuration, so the only thing that we need to just change is the target. So what is the source of our metrics? Yeah. So if I did this, if I went to the browser and I hit localhost / metrics. So you see, behind the scenes, Kong has matrices coming through, but this is the endpoint that the output logs and matrices. So this is what we are going to plug into Prometheus and then look at monitoring at the gateway. So this is what we are going to use. So ideally in its configuration, I'm just configuring and saying, okay, scrape interval, pick these matrices at 5-second intervals. Then after that, I only set up the target. So the target, I know this looks strange. Some of you might expect this to be probably localhost. It's Kong gateway. I'm running this on Docker Compose, and I set up a network. So networking, when I set it up, so Kong, you can refer to, it's more like a DNS. You can refer to services that are running in Docker Compose based on their service names. For example, Prometheus, you can say Prometheus :9090, that can be internally resolved in Docker. All right, so these are our settings, and I'm just going to run this. So I'll say Docker Compose app. So it's going to set up Prometheus and Grafana, right? Loki has also been set up, but I'll explain later why Loki is also running. Okay, Grafana is up and running, and then yeah, Prometheus is also up and running. Right. So after doing that, all I need to now do is I need to access Grafana. So Grafana is the user interface. It has pretty dashboards when it comes to monitoring and logging. So I'm going to go to localhost port 3000, because that's where Grafana is running. And so in case you just run this for the first time, let me use it in incognito. It of course forces you to log in. So the default username currently it's admin, and then the credentials. When I was running this, the credentials, you can easily set the credentials from here, but this is not secure, but this is just for demo purposes. So I'm just going to log in. Now I'm into Grafana. So Grafana is up and running. Prometheus is also up and running. We can also check for Prometheus. It's running on localhost port 9090. Yep, it is up and running. And we're going to look at the target status. Okay, I'm going to show you this. It is actually now connecting to Kong, as you can see here. All right, so you need to, of course, add a data source. So currently there's Prometheus data source, which is set up, and it is connecting. So we need to go to dashboards. Let me just see, I'm going to delete this. So I just set this up from scratch. Okay, so dashboards. So we need to create a dashboard. There's an official dashboard for Kong. So what you do is you just need to press come and just say create a new dashboard. So we can just import the dashboard. So the Kong dashboard is 7424. Yes, this one here.
Kevin, I think just for those who probably don't pick this, you can probably open that dashboard and just probably show them and probably say they can see the genesis of where you're getting the ID.
Ah, okay, cool. So Grafana in general, of course, has dashboards that the open source community build. So there are so many different dashboards depending on what you're doing. So for example, if you're going to run, if you're running Kubernetes, a Kubernetes cluster, you can have a dashboard that looks like this. So it is pre-built, so it's just a plug and play, much as you can still go ahead and refine it to your need. I can, let me just do a search here for Kong API gateway. Let's see whether it can find one. Yeah, also says, let me just put Kong. Yeah, I don't know why it's loading. It's not loading, but one of the dashboards.
Or
so
we could do one thing.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think you just open one, then we just replace the ID in the URL bar.
Okay, cool. So let me open, oh, it's actually here. So it has loaded. Yeah, it took some time. So Kong official is this dashboard here. So what you need, if you, like we are working on this Kong API gateway. So it has, the way you import it is just by specifying a dashboard ID. So upon specifying a dashboard ID, I've copied it. I can, let me open up, let's see, let me put it just here. So it looks like it is 7424. So the way you import it is you just get the ID. After getting the ID, you come to your Grafana dashboard, and then you paste the ID of the dashboard. Is that clear, Stephen?
Yeah, at least that throws more clarity.
All right, good. Thank you. Thank you. Cool. So, and then what you do, you just say load. Upon loading, it will actually pick the Kong official, which we saw earlier, a few information about it. Then when it comes to the data source, here you select Prometheus as the data source because Prometheus is running and also plugged. So when I select that, I just say import. So upon importing, this is how the dashboard looks like. If I go back to dashboards, so this has already been imported. I can go back to dashboards, and so currently there is no data, but we can try and play around with. Let me just try and make some requests. Request. Yeah, and then we try to refresh this. So eventually it is going to start collecting data, but as soon as it starts sending data this side, we shall take a look at it. Yeah.
Or I saw in the dashboard there was the interval is set 15 minutes.
Oh, the dashboard set to 15 minutes. Let me try and reduce it. It's updated.
Can do last 5 minutes and probably trigger the auto refresh. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably things
sure. Let me try running some more cases to just simulate what's happening behind the scenes. That's often authorized. And then go back. Yeah, so you can see there are some tables that are just are being tracked now. So you can see the total request rate and then the route per service. So currently we have this here, we have the service which is Awesome Blog API has been pulled. And then we also have its endpoint route, which is posts. And then, get posts. There's also a graph on latency. So I can collapse this so that it is more clear. There's a graph on bandwidth. There's a graph on caching, how caching is being done across the entire system of Kong. And yeah, like I told you earlier, that behind the scenes, Kong is actually built on Nginx. It's running Nginx to assist it. So that's why there's even Nginx dashboard over here. Okay. So we have centralized monitoring, centralized security. We've seen how we can access and then access our API, and then we've also seen how we can improve performance through caching with Kong. Any questions at this point?
Probably, if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat. For now, we're going to try to update the meeting settings such that we can unmute, probably in case anyone probably wants to verbally submit, they can be able to, yeah. Yeah, so at least I would say for now, so far what Kevin has presented has really been insightful. I think people on the call, you can agree, because what he tried to demo was Kong, which is something which is self-hosted. But if you recall the slides from the popular gateways, if Kevin, you can go back to that slide. Yeah, so as you can see, Kong, okay, it takes time to set up, right, Kevin? But
Yes, it
with
does.
cloud
When you're
services,
self-hosting it, yes.
yeah. But I think you can also just give a hint about managed services, because managed services, they save you this burden of that initial maintenance, setting it up for Docker, setting it up for Kubernetes. They make it easy, but it's basically the same idea, right? I think you can tell us, based on your experience working with Amazon API Gateway, Azure API Gateway, probably based on the features that you're seeing in Kong, probably what is similar, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that is
Yeah.
fine. Just like you said, there are so many flavors to this API gateway. Most of them do the same things: load balancing, routing traffic to upstream services. Now, when for extremely advanced cases, you of course might opt in for a managed instance. So Kong as well has its own managed instance. It's called K Connect. K-Connect or Kong Connect. Yeah. All you have to do is you have to sign up for it. After signing it up for it, I think you can try it for 30 days. I'm not so sure about that. You can try it out. You can connect your services to it, and then you can get up and running in no time. Azure API Gateway, it is a very interesting one. It is extremely robust. It has so many features. It even goes ahead and even offers you an API developer portal. You do not have to set up your own UI, to sell your APIs. The Azure API Gateway gives you that out of the box. You just configure your APIs and then you start selling your APIs immediately. It has authentication, which is similar, and then it also has a bit of it can go as far as when you sign up a user. Let's say you're using a user just testing it, it's testing your API. You can limit them and be like, so you can only do 50 requests. 50 requests. Beyond that, we are signing a contract. Otherwise, you're not doing any other thing with our APIs. And another thing with the Azure API Gateway that I saw that was very interesting is that when it comes to you might have so many endpoints. I've seen APIs that have hundreds of endpoints. So with the Azure API Management Gateway, it allows you to import. You can just import the Swagger documentation, and then it just creates all the routes for you at once. I have not seen that in Kong. I haven't yet explored that far, but I'm sure it has a way of doing it, but I have not yet seen it. And you can just quickly get on the run. Otherwise, if you have like 100 endpoints, you have to go ahead and create your service, and then you have to create individual routes, which might be a bit time consuming. Stephen, you've used the Amazon API Gateway extensively. I don't know, what was your experience?
I would say we haven't yet embraced the Amazon API Gateway, but I would say from the perspective of capacity, I would say it's rich, but at least if the Amazon API Gateway really has that, they really want you to focus less on writing backends. So it's more of, it mainly promotes a serverless approach, at least because they work with you have Amazon API Gateway set up, then you have Lambda functions, right? Because we talked of microservices, right? So that means each microservice can say be a function, right? So in Azure, you have Azure functions. In AWS, we have Lambdas. Basically, you can have all this logic, say, specified in a certain Lambda, because Lambda you can deploy code either as Docker or you can write depending on your favorite language. So probably you can break down things, but yeah, I think that integration of Swagger, I haven't really dived deep to really see that, but I know there's an integration with services, say like Amazon Elastic Kubernetes service, or if you have your services hosted, say, on the Elastic Kubernetes service on Amazon, you can use your services and expose them through the API Gateway, but it requires some configuration. But I would say, as Kevin has shared, Azure API Gateway really stands out. Yeah, so, but I know we have a couple of people on call who have probably worked with API gateways. Yeah, so if you can observe, your mics can now be unmuted. So you can probably feel free to ask a question or share your experience on API gateways, such that probably you can also share more learning points. So for anyone who is willing to go, feel free, please, to unmute and probably share something, such as, because we don't want to make it as a one-way channel. This is more of two-way, we share, everyone shares, because it's all about us learning from each other, and as well as at the end of the day, we shall be able to connect. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Actually, before someone else maybe goes through, so another thing that I noticed is that what you need to look out for with your API gateways that you choose. Imagine you are going to deal with WebSockets, different protocols, of communication. You need to make sure that the API gateway that you choose can support some of those other protocols. GraphQL, WebSockets, and so many more. And another thing is that with the Azure API management has all that. And then with Nginx, if you need to get up and running with Nginx, like the simple and extremely lightweight sort of API gateway or server at the least, Nginx is super, super fast, super quick, but you have to do a bit of work. All right, over to anyone who wants to submit.
Just a quick one. Something that you didn't emphasize, and something that is really important to any engineer out there, whether a software developer or a DevOps engineer, is pricing. So I think all of us on call can testify that ever since Kevin started demo in Kong, we have been using free mode. So there was also the bit of licensing, and also say he really dived deep into Azure API Gateway and say Amazon API Gateway. Probably could we say look at the pricing, because pricing is a really key factor. You don't want to use the service and the next morning you're waking up to a bill that could have probably been used for something else, or getting surprises, because all these cool features with cloud, any feature could probably mean a cost implication. So probably we could explore the pricing for Kong and also probably look into the pricing for Azure API Gateway, because pricing is a key factor, I would say, as a DevOps engineer, for me to really consider, say, embracing a certain tool. Yeah.
I agree totally. And actually, when you go to their websites, they have the different pricings. Azure, when you use the Azure calculator, you can just go there, type Azure API management, and then you can see the pricing, Kong as well as,
Would you mind just probably sharing that for us, just as people
Sure.
are thinking through some few questions they might have?
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
So
Yeah, Kong won't expose them. It
uh,
wants you to
yeah,
go ahead and contact some sales. It must be pricey, but I don't know. So
yeah,
let's say APIM Azure cost.
Azure pricing calculator, right? So for
Yeah.
Kong, probably, because I saw the free quote allows you 1 million requests per month.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's doable for the start. Yeah.
Azure APIM. Ah, APIM. Okay, so they are in tiers. And so you can see the basic tier. You can about $150 per month. It has some
500K per
limitations.
month.
Yeah, so when you go for the standard option, with the standard option, it has more features. Yeah, you can gauge the pricing from that.
Yeah. Yeah, but
That is per
it's
month.
really insightful because
Yeah.
I would say with growth, you find yourself probably paying for certain things because you save more. Because if you look at the
Yeah.
cost you spend elsewhere, provisioning different services, now you saw the caching bit, provisioning a Redis instance to be
Yeah.
implement caching. You'd
Yeah.
rather say opt for certain services that are consolidated in one go.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Yes.
I'd say it's really insightful. Yeah, it's really insightful. Probably the floor is open to the audience. Yeah, so someone had their hand up. Feel free to unmute and probably cut across probably a question or your experience, yeah, or your key learnings. Yeah. Then because at least Kevin has tried to cover at least within time. Yeah, and such that we can wrap this up. Yeah. Anyone? Or we
There's this question in the chat. I don't know whether we answered it. Why should I implement an API gateway like Kong instead of just developing one? Instead of one just developed. Okay, did we answer that question? It came in 6 minutes ago. Oh, we can give it a shot.
no.
Steven, can you try to give it a shot?
I didn't catch the question. Repeat that for me.
Why should I implement an API gateway like Kong instead of one just developed?
So because one just developed, probably what would be the context of one just developed?
Let's say one, but I think what Ben Okello meant is let's say you go ahead and create your own API. Like I said earlier, Ocelot,
Yeah.
which is provisioned by, I think, .NET, you can go ahead and actually code your API gateway or just come up with it. Can have, there are only two parts. There's the entry point. There's the entry point of data, and then there's an upstream at the end, which can be running on localhost. Okay, huh?
I see Ben on the call. Ben, would you mind unmuting? Probably throw more context.
Mike.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear David?
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Kevin, for that presentation. Very, very thorough, very comprehensive. Learned a lot. Thank you very much. So my question is, actually, I haven't used API gateways. It's my first time to experience them. And that is because, of course, the amount of load that I've been working with doesn't necessarily warranty an API gateway. So the question then is, at what point do you know that, okay, now I think I really need to put an API gateway behind my services? Yes. What kind of load are we talking about here? I don't know if that's clear.
Yeah, that's clear. Probably Kevin can give it a go. Probably can top up for that.
Go ahead, Stephen. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yes. So, in my opinion, once a service is being consumed either externally or internally, probably a centralized point really becomes a need, right? Especially now, I would look more at external access. So I would set up an API gateway if I have, say, an API that needs to be consumed externally, right? So for example, for context, say I was working with Africa is Talking, we offer certain endpoints or services that are required by external developers, right? So at that point, I would see the need for an API gateway, right? Because as Kevin shared, some of the plugins or features, say like caching, rate limiting, I think even most APIs we integrate with, even Momo itself, has rate limiting behind the scenes just to minimize denial of service attacks. Yeah. So I would say that is the best point. If you are granting external access and you need to ensure that security out of the box is implemented for your API, that's one approach I would be confident about implementing an API gateway, because it will offer you a centralized management platform for you to, control access to your API and also improve performance as well as monitor it. Yeah, so probably Kevin, you can add on more because you work with API gateways almost on a daily. Yeah, why would
sure. I can. So indeed, Stephen, you make valid points. So one of the questions I would probably ask David is like, what is your workload? How many are you using microservices in your solutions? And how big are they? Are they above 10, 20? David?
Sure. I think we are looking at 2 or 3 really at this point. Yes.
Okay, good. So 2, 3, you might not feel the pressure, right? But then the moment you hit 10, you hit 20, 30, you will feel the pressure. You will notice that you will start repeating certain things. You start repeating authentication. You start repeating caching. You start repeating a lot of things. Yeah. So you would eventually want to put certain concerns. You have to group concerns. When it comes to access, you have to group concerns to a gateway rather than having it implemented. So you will know when the time is right, and then you'll start waking up at, sleeping at 1 a.m. doing caching on 100 APIs when you could only do it in one place. Then also when it comes to when it comes to security, and yeah, it is more secure having it at one point, as Steven said.
Yeah, but I would say altogether, I think it's the features API gateways offer that would make one to embrace them. Because if we look at, say, other services that probably they come in at a hefty price, Kong as Kong could probably be a good start. Because if you look at 1 million requests, couldn't be bad. And there are so many installation options from installing it using Docker, installing it on Linux, installing it on Kubernetes. They are lightweight site setups. And also, I think if you look at other options, I think shared a comparison between both, because I think the main thing about the session was getting the fundamentals of API gateways. Then from there, it can help us, say, make informed decisions. So I would say if you're looking at, say, setting up Postgres, I would need to download Postgres, install it, then at one point expose it. But then with cloud, they give you a managed offering where you're going to go in the console, spin up things in just a few clicks, and you're good, right? So even with API gateways, we looked at Kong just to get the fundamentals, at least a building block from which you can be able to, get to explore other services, because the offering is the same. It's just more, I think most different providers have different add-ons. For example, we talked of Azure API Gateway, which enables you to implement, say, your Swagger or API endpoints, depending on how you probably drafted your API, to import them easily, and you're up and running. But then if your service is being consumed externally, I would say, to me, that's one of the key points to really embrace this. I think from the word go, because the more you grow, some of these things get hard to implement when you have that crazy growth. Introducing that change can come at a price, and price can be either money or time, which is something I think we see or experience with scale. So sometimes I think building or thinking through something from the word go can be something feature forward and can save you time. Yeah, I don't know, David, if we have thoroughly tried to address the question.
Yeah, I think that's really comprehensive. Thank you very much. Probably, yes, experiment with it on my own services and see how that pops out. Yes.
Yeah, thanks again for the question. We see Kelvin. Kelvin was our former presenter for the last session. Yeah, he has also joined us today. So Kelvin, please, you can unmute and proceed to fire your question.
Yes, thanks Kevin Otim and Stephen for organizing this session. It's very interesting. API gateways are pretty critical these days. So my question is, does an API gateway like Kong or generally any other API gateways, I joined the session late, so maybe this might have been talked about already. Does it provide like features like, let's say, service discovery in microservice environments? Because as environments grow bigger, like, there are environments which have like very many microservices and service discovery, which is like microservice registry. Does it provide features such as that? So that I think Kong does, but maybe I think I read about it, but since Kevin has gone much deeper into it, I just want to clarify my thoughts as well on that.
Yes, Kelvin. Yes, you are right. Kong indeed does service discovery, and yeah, I think we through the demo, like we registered services, which a service that represented our API and its endpoints, and all you have to do is you only need an endpoint, the best endpoint for the gateway, and then let's say you just say this is for service for catalog, this is for order, this is for product. So it does that very well. Yes.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, sure. So Ben clarified his question. So it's on the chart. He says, I have, all right. My question was if I develop an API for consumption internally by a mobile app and other interfaces hosted on a VM, in this case, which is Google Cloud, why do I need to connect to an API gateway, and how does this help? All right, let me give it a shot. So why you might need to do that? So an API gateway is, it helps when it comes to maintainability, because I'm sure there are common functionalities within your APIs and interfaces. For example, authentication, logging, monitoring, that you might want to put in one place rather than spreading them out. Yeah. So let's say, imagine, I think there was a time, was it log4, the one in Java? It had
Yeah,
a
Log4j.
vulnerability. Yes, it had a vulnerability. Now imagine you have 100 microservices and each is implementing that log mechanism. So then you have to change it to, let's say, Serilog. You can see the pain it comes with. So that's around maintainability. And then also it will improve on your performance. Much as it is running on a VM, it will still improve your performance through caching, like we saw. And also when it comes to scalability, because behind the scenes things do load balancing, which is really good for peak season. I think that's it.
Yeah. I would say I think Ben, your key takeaway would be what the key features the gateway offers, because think about it, it's a centralization, right? If you're looking at rate limiting, managing authentication and authorization, managing traffic, managing, I think when it comes to monitoring, right? If you look at, because monitoring encompasses over three things: matrices, traces, and logs, right? So which are really important, right? And with any API developed, effective monitoring needs to be implemented for easier troubleshoots and all that, yeah. So you could look at the benefits, right? Don't look, I think it kind of helps. To me, I would say, as long as the technology enables you to, scale faster, I don't really look at, say, the numbers, because at the end of the day, I think from experience, making a change when you've really scaled, really, I would say, tends to cost you in terms of time, and time that could come to hours of developers or rewriting things, or even trying to change these things, because it could take you time to really make these changes. So if you can be future forward, see ahead, the main thing is having the knowledge and also being able to make that right decision when you feel you're ready. Yeah, but I would say for now, you can feel free to start as you're starting, but if you start seeing certain things coming in that are offered, say, by these gateways, and I know that really, I think among the gateways you shared, traffic has been one of the open source. There are also open source ones that you can really get to play with or set up or use even at a very minimal price. Yeah, but Nginx really also plays a big role, or from the code approach, because you've seen certain teams even just write a project which serves as a gateway, right? I think, Kevin, that's something in the past that was happening. We have, like, say, a centralized service acting as a gateway, right? Routing, say, requests to the other. But it comes
Yes.
down to you, to make that decision. Yeah. I would say, do we have any more questions, or we could wrap this up early? Anyone, feel free to, unmute and probably need to fire your question. Yeah, but as you think through the questions, I would say, I think these sessions really show you that they bring together different concepts, because if you look at the point where we started, we were looking at things like Docker. Now we're looking at things like, we're talking terms like Kubernetes. Now we're talking things like Prometheus. Now we're talking things like Grafana. We are hitting so many things, piecing so many things together just to make something work, right? So I think with a deeper dive, I think we shall start having more sessions. So I would say around, probably for this I can even put on video. So yeah, so we want to start having, say, more sessions. Want to have more sessions around these different concepts. Yeah, and I believe we can be able to get to learn more. Yeah, because now we're having a baseline fundament on probably topics probably could be able to tackle in the next sessions, because now you see we're talking about Grafana, Prometheus. We could probably have sessions on this, and also things around Docker, because I think most of us, we have used Docker, but we haven't really had, say, that deep dive to really get to explore. So we can have, say, a masterclass or a webinar that gives you the real deep dive, yeah, such that you can, get a mastery of, say, a concept, yeah. So I think I would take this opportunity to say a thank you to everyone for sparing time over your weekend, coming along, joining us for our second session. Yeah, and we appreciate you creating time. Yeah, also we request you to, be able to join the community. Yeah. And also, since you registered, yeah, so if we create a marketing list, an email marketing list, and we bombard you with emails, yeah, so don't be like, no, these guys are really bombarding me. But we thank you for sparing time to join, and we hope session has been informative. As we always wrap it, we sometimes ask everyone to share their key learnings. I think we just randomly sample out, such that we know that, okay, whatever we are doing, we are really doing it for the best. Yeah. So at this point, I would also take the chance to thank Kevin. Thank you for, when I approached you, you're positive about this. And yeah, today you took time to, because it's not about waking up in the morning and, facilitating, for us to deliver a quality presentation. We discuss, and also we get to rehearse, and, such that we deliver an effective recording, or make sure that the content is to the best standards. Yeah. Yeah. So at this point, I'm going to just randomly probably call out people just to share something, probably your key learnings, then we can wrap it up.
I'll start with Keith.
I see Keith. Yeah, Keith, feel free to unmute and probably share a few learnings that your key takeaways from this session.
Hi, thank you first of all, Steve, for hosting this session. I think it's good what you're doing, especially in the DevOps space, and then also for Kevin spending time to take a look at this. Yeah, all I can say is gateways are needed, not only just for enabling clients or would-be users of your APIs to work out as expected, but you also to control, as we've seen. And yeah, the simple setup of Kong, which means that if you can maximize your resources, it's cheaper in the long run for the managed APIs, gateway systems that we have. So yeah, I will definitely continue using it based on how I've seen, and even of course with the monitoring that comes along, which is free. It was a nice setup, so thank you. Hopefully there's a part 2, I don't know, but yeah, this is good.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point, because yeah, we looked at one and probably, a deeper dive, say, in the cloud bit, say looking at Azure or any other service, probably you can see ways of how to, set up subscription and, have this demoed, and, because it's one of many to come. This is the second. Yeah, but it's a good hint. Yeah, because it enables us to explore different cloud providers and, you know, have a deeper dive. Yeah, but it's a good hint for topics ahead. Yeah. Thanks for that submission. We have a lady amongst us, Faith.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm glad I joined
Hi.
this session. Yeah, I was on and off due to internet, but I came in, I think when I was talking about monitoring and performance. Yeah, so I've been hearing about Grafana, but I hadn't taken a chance to look at its interface. And also about API gateways, I didn't know about it. All I knew was just deploy your app, hit the API directly. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to more sessions, and I hope the slides will be shared, or if there's any recording for me to catch up. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Thanks for your submission, Faith. And it's good for you to have joined. You know, I think about the internet connection. Sorry about that. But yeah, as we shared, this session is recorded, and it's going to be uploaded to YouTube. So we have a channel. So we shall make a post on LinkedIn. I think we're going to ensure that we record it. Yeah. Yeah, like, okay, we upload it to the YouTube channel such that we can, you know, it can be referenced. Yeah. So in the interest of time, we are going to call this a wrap. Thanks everyone for joining. Probably till the next session, feel free to join the Kampala Devops Community on LinkedIn, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Yeah, and I'll say that is it from us. Yeah. Thank you. Till next time, the next session details will be communicated, but we are looking forward to November. Yeah. Thank you for your time. It's a wrap for now. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.